Here are common mistakes people have about car accidents. Some people think you have to sue the other driver. Some people think you have to go to trial, but nope, you don't have to do that. In fact, majority of the calls I get from potential clients starts off with, "Hi there, I didn't want to hire a lawyer because I didn't want to sue the other driver." But wait, you don't have to sue the other driver. Description below as to that other video, but just know for now that the more injuries you have, the more money you get. The less injury you have, the less money you get. That just sounds fair, right? How long does the claims process last? It can last a few weeks, a few months, or even years, but it ends based on a very important date that you need to remember. That's based on the statute of limitations. The statute of limitation is by law the amount of time you have to sue the other driver or any other party that's responsible for your car accident and your injuries. You have to remember that date, because if you don't sue the appropriate people within that time frame, then you will lose your right to sue them and other rights as well. So it's by law, you have to remember this. As to what that time frame is, it depends on what law applies. For example, I'm licensed in California and Texas, and both states, the statute of limitations is 2 years, which means you have 2 years from the date of the accident and 2 years later to file a lawsuit with the court against the other driver or other responsible parties. So in that situation, the claims process lasts from the date of the accident up to 2 years. What happens during the claims process? The goal of the claims process is to reach a settlement with the insurance company. Settlement means that you and the insurance company agree on an amount of money that will pay you for your injuries arising from the car accident. Very important to remember, it does not come out of the pocket of the other driver. Instead, it comes out from the bank accounts of the insurance company. You need to hire a lawyer during this process, because if you do not, the insurance company will likely lowball you, meaning give you a very low settlement amount and might make you accept it. And once you accept it and sign a document that is called a release, meaning you're releasing your claim against the insurance company or you're releasing your right to sue them for anything else, then you cannot sue the insurance company or anyone else relating to the car accident if you find out after you signed that document and got the money that you have more injuries or more people to sue. So you have to be very careful during that process. If you want to know how insurance companies calculate the amount of money that they will offer you or how much your car accident costs, check out my other video where I talk about that in detail, and I'll put a link in the description below. You're probably wondering, why does she keep on referring to her other videos? I know it's annoying, but it's because if I put that all here, then I'll be recording 4-hour videos and more all about car accidents. So just know that those resources are available for you in the links below in the description. So just know that in a claims process, the goal is to reach a settlement. If your claim does not settle with the insurance company within the 2-year statute of limitations that we talked about, then you have to go through the second stage of the process, and that is filing a lawsuit. The second stage of the process is called the lawsuit. The lawsuit starts once a legal document is filed with the court. The legal document can be called differently depending on where you're located. For example, in California, the legal document that is filed is called a complaint. In Texas, the legal document that is filed to start a lawsuit is called a petition. It doesn't matter which name the legal document is called depending on the location. What matters is that you file that legal document so that the lawsuit can start the process. Remember how I was talking about the 2-year statute of limitations early on? Please do not file your legal document on the day of the 2-year anniversary or even closely in time. A good rule of thumb is to file your legal document at least 3 months before the 2-year statute of limitations. Why? Because there are some technical difficulties that might happen, some procedural issues that might happen. For example, I've heard lawyers freaking out because they filed the legal document the night that it was due, and they filed it online, but there was technical issues when they clicked file, and now they don't know if the court actually got the document. The next day, they call the court, try to figure out if it was received, and when the court says that they did not, then they're stuck. It is very difficult to get over the fact that you missed it only 1 day late. In fact, when I used to be a defense counsel, meaning when I used to represent people who were being sued, and now I represent people who are injured and suing. So when I was a defense counsel, there was a plaintiff that actually filed their complaint 1 day late, and the court ruled that they filed it too late, and so they lost. You don't want that to happen to you. What happens during a lawsuit? A lot of things happen. This is the time when all of the parties involved in the lawsuit starts investigating and trying to figure out what truly happened, what's what, who's who. That's why this process is called the discovery process by lawyers. And what happens is the parties involved in the lawsuit will start asking each other questions, will start requesting documents, and even start taking depositions. What that is an informal way to get testimonies of witnesses, including yourself, as to what happened during the accident and what your injuries are. The lawsuit can last a few months, a few years, or years after years after years. It could last up to 5 years, even more. The reason is because, again, a lot of things are happening during the lawsuit, and also the process is very slow. The law provides each party a certain deadline to respond to each other. So just because one person asks the other person for a question doesn't necessarily mean you get the answer right away, because the law allows each person a particular length of time to respond, and that slows the process down. So just understand that when you're in the lawsuit, then the process is very, very slow. After you file your lawsuit with the legal document we just talked about, at some point, the court will assign a trial date for you. That trial date could be a year or 2 years or even a few years down the line, and it can get continued, meaning move from one trial date to further trial date depending on what's happening in the case. And if there's a need to continue the trial, meaning to reschedule it at a later time because of certain issues that each of the party of the lawsuit lawsuit has. Unless your court system is in a fast-track mode, then the lawsuit up to the date of trial can last a few years. What is the purpose of the lawsuit? During the lawsuit, as I mentioned, that's the investigation stage. Another purpose of the lawsuit is to reach some sort of settlement. Again, settlement means that you and the parties involved in the lawsuit will reach a particular amount of money that you would agree to that says it compensates you or pays you for your injuries and pain and suffering. If there is no settlement reached during the lawsuit, then the case goes to trial. The third stage of the process is called the trial. The trial is what you usually see on TV or the movies. Like, for example, My Cousin Vinny, they had a trial there, so you get an idea. But of course, trial doesn't necessarily happen that way, right? A good way for you to know how a trial works and a good way for you to prepare for your trial, if you have a trial coming up, is to watch the online platforms regarding how trial works. For example, I'm a legal analyst for Law and Crime Trial Network, which is an online platform where you can watch high-profile trials happening across the country. You can watch some of these trials for free, or you can watch live. I'm usually live at the show every Friday from noon to 2 p.m. Central Standard Time. And what we do is we watch high-profile trials and then we comment on them on what's good, what's bad, and basically explain in layman's terms what exactly is going on. So it's a good way for you to understand why things are happening in the trial. Most of the trials you'll see on TV are criminal cases. For example, in Law and Crime, we talk about criminal cases. What a criminal case is about is the person who is found guilty goes to jail. But the difference with a civil case, which is what you have for your car accident case, the person who is liable pays money. So those are the two main differences between a criminal case and a civil case. In a criminal case, the person goes to jail. In a civil case, the person pays money. But even though you're watching trials that are criminal cases, it is still a good way to know what happens during the trial. The trial ends when the jury reaches a verdict, but some trial actually ends because a settlement is reached even on the eve of the trial, or even on the eve of the jury reaching a verdict. And when they say on the eve of trial, that means that at the very last minute, the parties reached some sort of agreement or settlement, as we discussed. And so then the jury can go home and don't have to reach a verdict at all. But if the jury has to reach a verdict means the decision that the jury made based on the law and the facts that were presented to them at trial, and they combine those two together to come up with the verdict. For example, in your car accident case, some of the issues that might be presented are: who was at fault for the car accident? Is it you or the other driver or a third party? Whether or not your injuries were caused by the accident itself. And 3, how much money should the person who caused the accident pay you for your injuries and pain and suffering? So as you can see, the jury has to decide certain issues in a civil trial, like your trial. For example, in your trial, the jury might decide that the other driver is at fault for the car accident and that the back injuries you had were caused by that car accident that the other driver caused. And let's say your medical bills is a lot, and also that your pain and suffering is a lot, then the jury might award you $1 million. So that is the jury verdict. And then after trial, the insurance company of the other driver who was found at fault will pay you or issue the check of $1 million to you. It doesn't necessarily come out of the other driver's pocket. There are still, of course, complications or legal issues that might happen, but generally just know that the money comes out of the insurance company's pocket. And if the insurance company or the other driver disagrees with the verdict, they can then go ahead and appeal it. They can appeal it with the Court of Appeal or the Supreme Court. That is very rare, and it's very expensive, and it takes a long time. So most people don't actually appeal their case. They just say, okay, well, it's a straightforward case. I'm the cause of the accident and I pay $1 million and my insurance company pays for it, so here you go. And then that's the end of it for all parties and you're done. To recap, the 3 stages after a car accident are the claim, the lawsuit, and the trial. Most cases settle during the claims process. And if your case goes to a lawsuit, most cases settle before trial. That's because trial is so expensive and time-consuming and a lot of work, and even the court encourages the parties to go ahead and settle it before trial. I've had many cases where I prepared for trial, and even the night before trial or the morning of, the case settles. That's because as much as possible, the parties really want to settle the case because again, it just takes a lot of time and money to go to trial. Even though it might last a few weeks or a few months, it's still a lot of work. As you can see, these three processes can be very complicated. That's why it's very important for you to hire a lawyer like myself so that you don't have to worry about this complicated process. You're already in pain, in shock, and confused after your car accident. Let your lawyer worry about that. That's my job if I was your lawyer. And what your job would be is to just heal and get your life back in order. If you learned something new from this video, please go ahead and click subscribe. If you've been following my other videos, you know that my son created this for me in support of my YouTube video. So please go ahead and click now the subscribe button right there to support our video so that I can go ahead and keep making videos like this to help people like you and other people who have been involved in car accidents. If you have other questions about car accidents, I created other videos as well, and I'll put the link in the description below. For example, we have videos about how much your car accident is worth and the 3 people you should call within 24 hours after a car accident. Feel free to check those out in the link.